Hi. Well, it's another beautiful day out here. Obviously, I've been sick, so that's why you haven't heard from me. But, nonetheless, I want to make a video and speak to you about a variety of things, even though I was sick. So, first thing I want to talk about is normalcy. Now, what is normalcy? Well, for one thing, you are a soul, but you believe you're a person. Okay? I'm going to cough a lot in this. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, so this normalcy is part of what you do in order to feel fit in. Okay? For instance, if you are white, the normal thing to do would be to hate black people. Right? I mean, that's the way it was back in the day. And so you hate black people for 30 years. And sorry. So, and then what happens? You get old and you wind up in a nursing home and you realize that the only people who are willing to touch you are black people. Right? That's what it is. Now, because of this situation, you have to totally re-examine, everything where you're coming from. Same thing with a lot of other things. Perhaps you love rock and roll. Okay? And you loved rock and roll in the 60s, you loved it in the 70s. But then in the 80s, disco came out. Right? And you hated disco, didn't you? And you hated disco right through the 90s till it stopped. Okay? And so on and so forth. Okay? This can go through a lot of different things. Like that. Okay? I mean, this is just the way we are. We need to feel normal. That's just the way it is. But whether or not we feel normal and whether or not we act like we're normal are two different things. Okay? Look, it's a very difficult thing to be normal in this world. Okay? We have to follow the norms. Sorry about that. And following the norms generally means doing something that you don't know why you're doing it. That's basically the way it is. So, how do we get away from that idea and do what's right for us? Well, I get it. You want to fit in. You want to be like other people because that's what we've been taught our whole lives, right? Be like other people. As you can see, I have a new microphone. So, no more bulky microphone stand. Anyway, so what we need to do is to realize, okay, that we're never going to be normal. Because normal is really a construct of the human mind. Okay? And that means trying to fit in is really a waste of time. Because you can't do it. That's all there is to it. You just can't do it. So, what does all this mean for you? Well, it means that trying to do what everyone else does is a waste of time. Hating someone for 30 years, okay, is a huge waste of time because eventually you're going to find out you love them. That's just the way it is. So, that's the situation with that. Now, you feel like you want to fit in. You feel like you want to be part of the gang, right? And everything follows from that. Your behavior and the things you want and the things you do all involve that. Okay? Which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if you're doing that, if you're trying to be normal, then you're not going to be happy. That's simple as that, you know? I don't want anyone to feel unhappy, but that's the way it is. So, how do we feel happy? Well, for starters, accepting. When we try to fit in, we're trying to... Sorry about that. When we try to fit in, we're trying to change ourselves, okay, into what they want us to be, right? That's what we're doing. And that doesn't work because you are who you are. That's just the way it is. And secondly, you need to find out who you are. And that can mean going out and doing some soul searching or so on and so forth. But importantly, it also means finding your soul. Now, I mean, I'm not trying to say anybody should do anything, but you need to get connection with your soul. Okay? And that connection with your soul can only come from a spiritual journey or the spiritual path. So, sorry about that. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that you don't know who you are. And that's why you're unhappy. That's why you want to fit in. Because that fitting in allows you to say, I am this. Okay? Which is still not true. You aren't that. You may think you're that, but you are not that. Okay? I know this is hard to understand, but what you are is a soul. Anything that you try to be beyond that is a waste of time. Because it just is. Now, sorry, I'm still sick, but I want to get something out there for you guys, and this is how it goes. Now, everything we do in order to do this, in order to fit in, is doing it. You cannot fit in with society that values things above people. It's rough being sick. When you try to fit in with a society that values things above people, then you are going to fail because that's just not the way it should be. Okay? What should be is we value people above all, but that's not the way it is. So, how do we fix this? How do we change it? Well, for one thing, by accepting. Accept that you are the way that you are, And that's it. Okay? For instance, I have long hair. Now, why do I have long hair? Well, because I chose, when I was awakened, to shave off all my head. That's what I did. I shaved off all my hair when I was awakened. And then I basically said, I take this vow, which is I'm not going to shave it off again. That is who I was. That was a vow I took. Okay? And everybody has their own vows in their life. Who are you? If you know who you are, then you can take a vow also. For 60 years, I didn't know who I was. I thought I was one thing. And I was completely wrong. Well, I guess you could say not 60 years. 50 years or so. I mean, I guess you could say the age of reason is... the age of reason is starting at 15. Anyway. So, that is why I have long hair. That is why I choose to present myself in this way. Because I don't care what anybody else thinks. Okay? Because I think what I think is more important than anyone else's. That's it. Boom. Now, if you have a certain set of circumstances in your life that cause you to do things, that's on you. And I totally am with that. Why did I shave off my head after I awoke? Well, because I didn't want to be that person anymore, and that person had hair. Okay? And a fairly decent beard. Okay? So, I shaved it all off. With the understanding that I was going to grow it back and not cut it ever again. So, everybody has their own thing. I'm a musician also. I like playing music. And so that's who I am. And you are who you are. Which is great, whoever that is. But if you are trying to fit in to a world that does not value people, then you are going to be unhappy. That's just it. And I hate to say it's true, but that's the way it is. We got a lot of things in this world that are messed up. That's one of them. And we have to deal with that over time. That's just the way it is. But in this circumstance, we also have to deal with what do we want, right? And what we want is freedom, right? That's what everybody wants, don't they? Sure they do. And so, how do we get freedom? Well, by recognizing who we are. I know it's hard to do that recognizing, but as long as you think you're a person, okay, and God knows you are one, okay, to some extent you're a person, you have a body, a name, a history, so on and so forth. But deep down inside, you are not a person. Deep down inside, you are a soul. Okay? And so, you're eventually going to have to reckon with that. And maybe not. Who knows? Nonetheless, try and understand who you are. You can be a person for the rest of your life. You can continue doing the things that you're doing now till you die. Okay? And that's fine. I got no problem with that. But you are going to be unhappy. I don't want anyone to be unhappy, but that is just the way it's going to be. Anyway. So every day you have to accept things as they are. Okay? And that includes whether or not you accept that you're a soul. Or you can not accept them. You can say, I am not this thing that everyone thinks I am. Everyone thinks you are a person. But that is not who you truly are. Who you truly are is a soul, down deep underneath everything. And that's just the way it is. And as long as you are trying to fit in with society that basically doesn't care about you, I mean, I hate to say it's true, but it is. They do not care about you. Okay? Why? Because that's just the way it is. I mean, yeah, maybe there's other good reasons for it, but I don't think so. I mean, this society was built on other societies of the past, and so on and so forth. And right now we have, Donald Trump doing what he does, and it's obvious he doesn't care about anyone besides himself. And therefore, everything he does is going to be for his benefit and not yours. Anyway, that's my opinion. Now, everybody has to live this life according to their own lights, as they say. Maybe you are okay with being a prisoner, because that's what you are. A prisoner of society. Okay? You were born into this life. And then you were trained by society to be the way you are. That is what it is. I don't want it to be something that necessarily is making you feel bad, but that's the way it is. And the society was set up in order to keep you as a prisoner. Right? I think about a guy who was kept prisoner for 22 years in his stepmom's house. Okay? And I thought to myself, oh my God, how could that be? It could be because that's happening all the time. Just on a more massive scale. But you can break out of the prison, just like the guy did. Okay? He was 22 years, I guess he was 34 years old, but he was 22 years in captivity. And he burned the house down rather than stay there. That's pretty radical. And you can do the same. By accepting that you are not a person deep down. By accepting that you are a soul. There's a lot of ways of looking at this. Like, for instance, imagining what it would be like to be a soul. Or imagining how your life would change if you were a soul. And that means trying to understand what a soul is. And what a soul is God. That's it. God took a piece of himself and made it into a soul and put it in your mama. And then you were born shortly thereafter, and now you have that soul in you. Okay? It's a part of God. And as long as you don't, accept or at least understand that that is who you are, then you're going to be suffering. That's just the way it is. Sorry about that. Anyway, so accept what is. And what is that you are a soul. Accept that. Okay? I know it's hard to accept that you're not a person that you've always thought you were. But that was put in your head by society. By your parents, by the schools, so on and so forth. Which is society. So, that's what you have to do with your life if you want it to be better. And we all have things about our life we don't like. And we have to accept that. But one of the things we don't have to accept is not being a soul. Not being a soul by God, made by God. Okay? Because they want you to believe that. They want you to believe it so hard. Even though the ones who are saying, let's go to church, and you sit in church and you pray in your prayer book and you sing songs, those people don't want you to realize who you are because then they have no money coming in. I mean, it's a big business. And why was it started? Well, because back in the day, somebody had an experience, a spiritual experience. Okay? Now, whether that was Jesus Christ or somebody else, it really doesn't matter. And that spiritual experience changed them to the extent that they had to go tell people about it. That's it. You can have that same experience in your life. We're only on this world for a short amount of time, really a blink of the eye. Now, we can spend that time shopping and looking at social media and all that other stuff, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what I am saying is that it's not working because you're unhappy. And as long as you keep trying to become society's pawn by fitting in, and that's what you're doing. Sorry about that. I still have some sickness going on here, but anyway. So, just try and realize who you are. Okay? I don't want anybody to be a prisoner of society. Okay? But unless you can realize who you are, that's what you're going to be. Now, I know it's hard for people. How dare he say I'm a prisoner of society? Blah, 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 blah. Well, that's fine. Go ahead. Feel that way. But if you look at yourself and you look at what you've done with your life and you look at, even if you're like, say, 60, okay, you have to admit that you haven't had freedom. Right? That's the way it is. You haven't had freedom. And why you haven't had freedom? Because you weren't designed to have freedom. Okay? Back in the day, in like the 1800s, they came up with a way of classifying individuals. And they called it a personality. Now, you have been classified. You're type A, or type B, you're an introvert or an extrovert, so on and so forth. Okay? And they base that on your behavior from when you were a kid. That's how they do it. And that's just not you. You can think that's you if you want to, by all means. I'm not saying not to think it. But it's not. Okay? And as long as you are stuck in that personality classification, which you are, you're going to be unhappy. Why did they do this? Why did they decide to classify people? Well, control. That's why. Control was everything to them because they had a situation. And that situation was, we have all these people, how are we going to control them? Because that's how people like that think. And so this guy, Freud, came up with the idea of the personality test. Okay? And whether you think you've taken one or you haven't taken one or whatever it is, you believe that you've taken one. Anyway, that's the way it is. But you do not have to accept their programming. And that's what it is. They've programmed you to be a certain way. Okay? Because that works for them, because then they can control you. They can pigeonhole you and put you in a box. Okay? And take away the one thing that really matters in this life, which is freedom. Okay? Now I know, I've said this stuff before, but I wanted to talk about it now because I've just really felt that it needed to be talked about. And I know you guys wanted a video from me, and I wasn't producing one because I was sick, so yeah, what can I say? But try to understand that you are not a personality, okay? Because you're just not. You have to be a person to become a personality. That's what you have to be. And the fact is, you're not a person. You think you are, which, is fine. I mean, you want to think that, go ahead. But that's not who you are. You are a piece of God. Okay? And that piece of God is the most precious thing in the universe. Okay? And if you continue to not believe in that, okay, if you continue to allow the universe to think of you as less than that, then you are not going to be happy. That's just the way it is. And I don't want that. What I do want is for you to be happy. But unfortunately, happiness comes at the price of understanding who you are. And that's it. Okay? If you can't understand who you are, then you can't have happiness. No matter how great it is to be with people, and I know it's great to be with people. Excuse me. The happiness you feel when you're with people comes from God. And He wants to give you that happiness all the time. And He's willing to give you that happiness all the time. And the only way to get that is by accepting who and what you are, which is a piece of God. Now, I guess that's about all I have to say today, except that I love you all, because you're me. There is no difference between me and you, or me and anything else on this planet, as long as it's alive. because even a blade of grass has a soul. You may think of it as not a soul because we say, oh, if a blade of grass has a soul, then I must not have a very great soul or whatever. Most of the time, we don't even understand what we're thinking. But if anything that's alive came from God, because God is the creator of all life forms. Okay? And therefore has a soul. And God does not think about whether or not you're going to be a person or a blade of grass or a tree. He just dishes it out. Anyway, like I said, I love you all. And I wish you all the best. Have a great life and a great day.